welcome to the next of our short films looking at aspects of negotiation. We're taking a more detailed look in this film at the very crucial underlying component, which is communication. Just to remind ourselves of the importance of it, Levicki et al. Said, communication is at the heart of the negotiating process, and we've seen other writers, Fisher and so on, say in the past that without communication there is simply no negotiation. Another negotiation writer, Lee Thompson, has also put it the other way around and said actually that negotiation is the individual's key communication and influence tool inside and outside the company, saying that actually a lot of the communication that in an organisational sense professionals do is a form of negotiation. So if you put these two together, you actually can think of it expressed as a kind of symbiotic relationship where to be an effective negotiator, one has to be able to communicate, but actually negotiation is an effective way of communication in and of itself. To think about the elements of communication and where the key aspects of it really lie, let's have a couple of quotes from these two characters, rather contrasting characters. From the 45th President, I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words. Well, good for him. So he can talk. Is that really what it's all about? The Dalai Lama says something by contrast. When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know, but if you listen, you may learn something new. And I'd like you to hold on to that second quote throughout the rest of this film, and indeed when you're thinking about how you approach negotiations. We already know what we know inside our heads. We tend to make assumptions about what we think is in other people's heads, but only actually if we can encourage them to express themselves and then listen closely to what they say, do we actually learn something new. And that is the key to building good value-adding, mutually satisfying deals. From Getting to Yes, Fisher said, many consider it a good tactic not to give the other side's case too much attention and not to admit any legitimacy in their point of view. A good negotiator does just the reverse. Again, it's about me being able to understand you in order that I can understand where we go from here, how we can build a deal together through our negotiation dialogue. It's all about, once again, not just understanding the what that we articulate in our positions, but the why, the interests that underlie and that motivate us to take up those positions. It isn't just about what we're telling each other, particularly at the start, it's about what's really going on underneath the surface. And the good, effective, wise negotiated deal is the one that draws on the underlying interests of both parties. And in the negotiation, how we communicate as well as what we communicate is just as important. As McGinn has said, the negotiation sends a status message. The way we interact is a message to me about how much you value me and our relationship. And that applies both in general terms of the way we play the game, but specifically about communication and our communication techniques in negotiation. How much respect and value we appear to be giving to the other side through how we pay attention to what they're saying and how we express ourselves when we're the ones that are communicating. And remember, this links into the very, very important driving, motivating factor for people in negotiation and in life generally, which is the notion of fairness. How you treat me is crucial to what I think about the proposition you are affording or you are putting in front of me. And people will walk away from a deal or from a discussion, even if it's in their interest to do so, if they feel they've not been valued, respected, or treated fairly. So how do we show this value and fair treatment? Well, we need to pay attention to the other side, as we've said, but then we need to be able to show them that we have paid attention to the other side, and we need to make sure for our benefit and theirs that we've actually captured correctly what it is they were attempting to communicate. 3 obvious techniques that a lot of people use in their jobs and elsewhere are the ones on the screen just now. Paraphrasing and summarising, putting what's been said to us into our own words, condensing it, and then articulating it back to the other party, preserving its meaning while doing so. This has many benefits, the first of which is simply that we have been paying attention to the other party, and now we're sending them the signal that we have done so. Flagging and signposting, putting a structure into the conversation, identifying the issues that you believe need to be covered, later on perhaps identifying the issues that you believe have been covered and the ones that still remain to be addressed. And all of this is about checking, understanding. Have I picked you up correctly? What I thought I heard you say was. Now, in all of these techniques, the benefits are many. The benefits are to the other party, as I say, are we're sending that signal that we're actually valuing them and respecting them by listening closely to what they say. We are also putting back to them what we think we heard from them, that gives them a chance to correct any misunderstandings that we may have encountered in the way we picked up what they said, and also lets them hear just what their messages come across like to another party. So the benefits for better understanding and self-understanding are actually many and varied. Remember that the signals we give off, and we are giving off signals all the time, can be positive, they can be confirming responses, or they can be disconfirming responses. They can be active listening, they can be accurate summarising, they can be nodding, eye contact, anything that shows attentiveness to the other party and to what they are communicating to us. Or indeed, we can send disconfirming responses. That can be not listening, that can be not being able to pick up on the detail accurately because our attention was elsewhere, because we were too busy, for example, thinking about what we were going to say next, rather than actually taking the time to listen to what was being communicated to us. It can be checking your phone, lack of eye contact in our culture. It can be looking out the window, and so on and so forth. We need to be conscious of the signals we're sending off at all times. And these signals are given off in different ways. It's not just about the words we use, it's about how we express ourselves, and in the dance element, if you like, it's the body language, it's what we appear to look like, what our facial expressions are, for example, while we are saying what we're saying. And we're just going to briefly demonstrate some of these other elements that are less obvious in some really simple exercises. I'm going to put up a very simple 4-word statement on the screen to you, and in different variations we're going to see one of the 4 words alternately emphasised. And I want you to say the phrase out loud with an appropriate accent or emphasis on the underlined and highlighted word. And then at the end we can think about how the meaning of the statement changed depending on the emphasis being placed simply on a different one of the 4 words. Okay, so this is our statement. Very, very simple. And this is demonstrating the music. In turn, say out loud, pause the video if you need to, the 4-word statement with the appropriate emphasis. Okay, so what did we see there? 4-word statement, different emphasis in each iteration of the statement, and what we can see actually is that there's a very different meaning simply by changing the music, not by changing the words at all, by changing the emphasis. In the first one, it's indicative. You can imagine the speaker pointing to a cat. In the second one, it's categorical. We're identifying the cat that scratched me, that it was a cat rather than, for example, a dog. In the third one, it's behavioural. We're saying that cat scratched me. It's what the cat did to us. And in the fourth one, it's personal. The cat scratched me. The cat did not scratch you or the person down the street. They scratched me. 4 different meanings to the same statement simply by changing the music. And the dance is also important. Lee Thompson did some research with MBA students years ago in a negotiation context and asked them in the negotiation to look closely at the body language of the other parties and to, first of all ask what aspects of body language they noticed and then what messages they got from the signals that were being communicated in this non-linguistic way. And the categories that were identified that were all meaningful and significant to the negotiation are there on your screen now. From body movements through to facial expressions, through to eye contact, the amount of interpersonal space that was left between the parties, the gestures, think about use of hands for example, posture, sitting forward, sitting back, slumped shoulders, etc., etc., and so on. All of these elements of dance had an impact on the meaning of the messages that the parties were sending in the negotiation. So just to sum up then, communication is a core skill of negotiation. It has the potential to affect our ongoing relationships within the particular negotiation and for future relationships as well. That you learn by listening, and the how of the communication is at least as important as the what of the communication.